a lot of people tolerate, what do I want to say, poor intimacy or something that doesn't really feel good to them because they think that, oh, this person is doing this thing and I'm supposed to just go with it. Where I teach people to have a voice and we can teach our partners what feels good and where the pleasure is and what doesn't feel so good and where the pleasure isn't.
Hi everyone, welcome again to Pleasure Talks. Today we have a special guest, Laura. Oh, we're both Lauras. I just noticed that. How are you doing, Laura?
I'm great. Thank you so much. And thank you for inviting me to Pleasure Talks.
So tell me, what piqued your curiosity of participating in this conversation today with me?
Pleasure is one of my favorite subjects.
More.
I think people, when they hear pleasure, they think about sexual pleasure or pleasure that has to do with multiple bodies, two people. But I find pleasure in so many other things that I do and just my surroundings, my environment, in nature, in food, in clothing, and decorating my home. There's just so many places to find pleasure in our lives if we stop for a moment and pay attention.
So what you're saying is like you got to a point where everyday sensation is pleasurable for you, or maybe like you just focus more your attention onto making sure everything is like pretty, like you say, and smelling the flowers and making adorning your body. Just those are like different vehicles that allow you to experience pleasure.
Yeah, I choose things to surround myself that I receive pleasure from doing or being. I go places that I find pleasurable. I don't do things out of obligation or because I have to or I should. I do things when I want to and I need to. And I find there's a lot more pleasure in that. And at home, I like to have things that are meaningful on my walls, to decorate my walls. A lot of times they're colorful or they're maybe the spiritual images or something. I have lots of fuzzy blankets and twinkle lights and electronic candles and just things to create a container for myself that feels nurturing and pleasurable and yummy.
Well, sounds so good. It sounds like your home is a very comfortable home.
So I think.
When did you start this with pleasure? And like making it sounds like you make it like the central point of your life.
Yeah, I spent 20 years in an emotionally abusive relationship, and I was in a corporate finance executive vice president position at work and doing all the things that I need to make somebody else money and being in service to my clients, but not in a way that felt as rewarding to my soul. And about 6.5 years ago, I met somebody who was navigating the world in a different way with workshops and personal growth and learning and tantra and sexuality was in there. I just realized there was sort of a lot more to life than what I was actually living and experiencing and taking in.
Oh, wow. Sounds like this person allow you just to see a different perspective. And the one thing that came to mind is like the Matrix video, when it's like, this is a life you've been experiencing. It's good, but it was something missing.
Yeah, there was definitely something missing. Part of me kind of knew it, and the other part of me didn't know it. The world or the life that I have now is very, very different from the life that I had before. I didn't go to workshops. I didn't understand people who went to workshops. I didn't know what Tantra was. My sexuality, my sex life had kind of died because of the emotional abuse. And so I kind of went to sleep. I kind of went to sleep for a while, and meeting this new person and hearing that person share about their life experiences and the different types of activities that they were involved in, I just got really curious and started asking, where do I go to learn about that? And where can I go to learn about this other thing? And I kind of figured the worst thing that could happen if I went to something that I didn't enjoy is I could get in my car and go home. And I never went home. Never went home. There was always at least three from everything that I went to go do. Some were profound learnings and life lessons, and some, not so much, but also getting like a layering of information and experiences that sort of made each other experience more understandable to me in this new culture, if you will.
And I think sounds like even though the different, like one specific workshop didn't have like that impactful feeling, it didn't mean that it wasn't useful or that you didn't learn anything new. Kind of like each layer also added a new flavoring to your life, a new perspective into your awareness.
There was something to be gained from everything I went to. Sometimes I'd walk away and I'd be a little confused about where I was, what I just did, not quite understanding, but also having like a deep knowing that there was something there. And then people would invite me to come to the next thing. They'd say, oh, have you tried this? Have you done this? Have you gone to this organization? Have you done one of these? Have you danced? And I'm like, wow, I haven't done that yet. Where can I go do that? And so I might go have another experience somewhere, another workshop, or maybe just an experience. And then all of a sudden I got kind of the missing puzzle pieces as to, oh, now I get it. Now that thing made sense. I would like this puzzle was being put together, layers were being added to my new world.
So this, you're sort of like describing the process from like the lifestyle that you had 20 years ago, and then a little bit of the process of change after meeting this person, and now you're a sex and relationship coach.
It's
more about it, please. That's my path. Yes, I want all of the juicy knowledge and you have. How did this transition happen? Because from being like quite reserved person onto like, no, I can help you now. That's quite a shift.
I mean, I was never shy or reserved. My friends, when I was a younger person, even in my teens, used to sort of joke with me and say, oh, you should be a sex coach. You should be Dr. Laura or Dr. Ruth. And it was just kind of a funny thing that we joked about. I'm not really sure why, because I wasn't hypersexual, or, I had a boyfriend and I only was intimate with my boyfriend. I wasn't promiscuous, if you will. And so I'm not quite sure why you would say that, except for the fact that I could talk about it very openly and very freely. And never in my wildest dreams, if someone had said when I was in that previous life and marriage, in 5, 6, 7 years, your life is going to look like this, and you're going to be relationship, sex, and intimacy coach, I would have said, no way is that ever going to happen. But as I dated this man for almost a year and started really exploring and diving deeper into my sexuality, what feels good, what I want less of, what I want more of, learning to speak that. And then also going to some workshops. Like I do a lot of work with the Human Awareness Institute, hi.org. And that body of work is about relationships, sexuality, intimacy, body, self-confidence, kind of teaching people how to relate, communicate, be authentic. And so putting all the pieces together, and then especially with Hi, learning about boundaries and consent, and seeing other people in workshops and what was needed for people's growth. It just kind of kept coming back to me. I had done a intro night with the Somatica Institute back in 2018, and I thought it was great, but I was in the corporate world, and it was good personal learning, but I couldn't take the time to do the course. And then I left the corporate position about 2.5 years ago, and just was waiting for the messages to come in, like what was next. And somatica just kept coming back and kept coming back. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be doing that.
You did the somatica sex coaching certification.
Yeah, I went through the core program, and I did the graduate program, and I also did their BDSM program. Woo!
Warm.
So yes, I've got all 3 of those programs, and
well-rounded like knowledge about like sex and intimacy, because somatica is a very good school.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a great program. And day 1 sitting down, I was in their last in-person class, so we got to be live. So I have a cat here crying that she wants something. And just sitting down on the first day was that feeling that inside your soul, you're like, oh yeah, this is where I belong. This is where I'm supposed to be, learning from these 2 amazing women, and with this group of people who are sex positive and curious and wanting their own learning and healing and growth. Not everybody who goes through the program becomes a coach. Just do it for personal growth work. It's amazing for that. But then a lot of people, once they got in, thought, oh my gosh, I have to change careers. I want to do this. I want to teach people this.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that this training, you took some in person. There were like other components online, because there is like, I've heard a lot of people of this idea that, oh, how can you do like sex coaching sessions over Zoom? It's like, are you truly able to build like that intimacy and that connection, and like even feel that erotic, energy flowing through your body? How was within your experience being the student and also being the coach, and connecting with some of your clients?
Yeah, I was a little surprised because the core training for me was in person. I got to go and sit there for 4-day modules once a month, which was amazing. But the advanced training was all online. And when I found out the advanced training was online, I was disappointed. I wanted to be back in the room, because when you're sitting at the core training, you're cuddling with your friends, you're touching people. It's not like sitting in a corporate room at a desk at a table. You're on cushions and pillows, and it's intimate. Just the learning itself is intimate. And so I thought, how's this going to work on Zoom? And it really does work, because you are right there still with the person. The energy transfers through the screen. You can feel the energetics. The part that's missing is that because somatica is an experiential practice, it's a close-on, boundaried experiential practice, you can't touch your person, obviously, right? So if what I'm doing is I'm teaching somebody to touch and teaching different types of touch, I have to explain it in a way that they can practice it on their own body. Mm-hmm. A little bit different than as if we're explaining the exercise to somebody and I spend 10 or 15 minutes showing and demonstrating the exercise, and then we would switch. If we were here in person, we would switch, and then that person would practice that on me. Mm-hmm. And so there's some things do better in person because they're touch focused. And a lot of it is really about having an intimate and vulnerable relationship with the coach.
Being able to open yourself and not to shy away talking about those topics that they're very vulnerable, but we're also being conditioned not to discuss.
Right.
Kind of like the topics that need to be in private. And I feel like the work that you're doing within your business is like, no, let's talk about it. Let's learn more from each other so we can all have more pleasure.
Right. And what I consider myself to be sometimes is a vulnerability coach. I personally do vulnerability really well. It's just who I am. It's where I go. It's the depth of relationship that I like to have. And so I model that for my clients. And the experiential practice is about like a surrogate almost for relationships, relating to somebody. It doesn't have to be an opposite sex person. It can be any gender, and it can be all kinds of other relationships. So we model that for our clients, and we explain to them in the beginning, like, I'm going to be vulnerable with you, right along here with you. And I'm going to share some things about myself that are vulnerable also. We can also get triggered. So the client may say something having no idea that it's going to be a trigger for me, and the thing comes up, and all of a sudden I could go into some sort of a trauma response or trigger. And that again is modeling that for the client. We're humanity, we're all humans, and vulnerability comes with humanity. So the more vulnerable I get to be and show my clients, the more permission I think they give themselves to, oh, I can talk about that thing, and she's not going to shame me, and she's not going to make me feel guilty or wrong or dirty or bad. I'm going to celebrate them and embrace them and want to know more. And
yeah. And that's like how Brené Brown said it, like the power of vulnerability. Once you allowed yourself to be like honest, vulnerable, and share that, intimate part of yourself, is also like you're giving the other person permission to do the same. And I think like within the world of sex coaching, and specifically within the somatic training, we create this culture where like we're not judgmental towards the other, right? Because what makes you yum doesn't might not be for me, but I don't have to yuck on your yum. Right? We can all coexist. You have fun.
Right. It's not something that I can join in right there with the client saying, oh yeah, me too. And I love this and I love that. It may be something that's not for me. I'm not going to, like you said, yuck their yum, right? I'm going to celebrate the fact that they know what they want and they know it feels good. And no matter what you want in sexuality, there are other people that want the same thing too. So if you don't know how to find it, let's help you find that. Let's help you get that, find that pleasure and get those desires met.
You are living in the States. Which city or within the States are you living? So people will be easier to contact you. And also, what's your website?
I'm in the San Francisco East Bay, and my website, my business name is All You Need Is Love. And so it's All You Need IZ is spelled IZ, and I have a cat named Izzy. So it's spelled out All You Need IZlove.com. And it has a full pictures and offerings, and my pricing's on there. People can come in and join and sign my newsletter. And I talk about my life and where I came from and what steps I took to get where I am, and hoping that the people who want to work with me, that what I write resonates for them.
Because your journey has been quite amazing. It's kind of like, I don't know if I can say kind of like, well, you get the job, you get the corporate job, you get the husband, like you have done all of these steps, but then that experience also allow you to meet another new universe, right? After like encounter this person who opened your mind and your awareness, and now you can be that person for other people.
And I've done that with relationships, other partners, that it was obvious when the relationship ended that I was in their life for a reason. And I was just thanking the person that gave me this opportunity to start fresh and learn something new. And I'm like, okay, I'm passing it along. So in my business, I get to pass it along every day, and multiple people, not just one at a time.
Yeah. So the world of sex coaching is relatively new. So I guess some of like our listeners and viewers might not know exactly how the session work. So what is your process, if you could share a little bit of like one-on-one sex and coaching?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. It starts with, well, I find a person wherever they come from, and I do a free 20-minute, what I call discovery call. So we generally do that on Zoom and get a feel for each other, get an idea what this person is looking for, where they are with their growth or knowledge, what they want to work on. And if we feel together aligned, because it is a mutual relationship, then I offer a first session to the people that are listening to this video today, a 77-minute session for $77.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, mine's $145, and I sell packages of 5 and 9. But if someone's listening and they mention Pleasure Talks, I'll be happy to pass along a $77 deal for 77 minutes. So then once we decide to go ahead and book that session, we decide whether the person wants to come in and work with me in person or if they want to do Zoom. And some people do both. They go back and forth depending on what we're going to work on. And each client is different and unique and has their own special needs. And so it's not a one size fits all process. It really depends on who you are and what your special unique needs are. And there might be days where I think, oh, I know what I want to work on with this person today because of where we were last time. But when they walk into my office, their needs are a little bit different. And so we work with whatever's present in the moment. And we can always go back to things and circle back, but it doesn't make sense to just stay on a particular trajectory for the same for everybody. We're all different. We all have different needs, and tomorrow is a different day. So it just, progresses that way with whatever someone's needs are at the moment.
So 20-minute discovery call, then see if you guys aligned and if you can support in whatever they're needing, and then kind of figuring it out, okay, what would be the intention for the session, kind of create sort of a plan, and then just game on.
Some really basic things. We start with just empathy and compassion and attunement and self-love and self-care. We don't jump right into how are we going to have sex. Not that I'm having sex. When I say we, I mean that person, whoever they're with, it's a non-sexual container. But it starts with some really basic, who am I and what are my needs and what have I been through and what am I working with here? And people have all kinds of different ranges of skill sets and knowledge when it comes to sexuality. Some people don't really know how to touch. They're afraid to touch. And we start with really basic, beautiful exercises. And I can, like I said, teach somebody how to touch. Mm-hmm. And if somebody is processing something that has been traumatic or upsetting to them, we also offer a loving touch. We can hold our client. They can curl up in our lap and they can talk. And when we're having a somatic experience of being connected to another body, we go deeper than we do in just talk therapy. It's more intimate and it just allows open up and the vulnerability to go deeper. So we can cuddle somebody, they can crawl up in your lap, or they can lean back against your body and you can wrap your arms around them. And so many people are touch starved. They don't get that kind of touch anyways, especially men. Men love to be held. They love to be held. Nobody offers to hold a man. And it's a really beautiful gift to give that to people. And to watch somebody learn to receive that, which is actually a skill that we teach sometimes, is we have to teach people to learn to receive.
That's a big one. And even if it sounds like, people might say, oh, I'm paying for a sex coach and we're talking about empathy and how to touch. And so because I'm sorry, give me 1 second. I feel like our conception of sexuality is too narrow into penetration and genital contact. And the way that you're describing it is no, let's first get to know oneself, to know yourself, and the things that you like, just the basic touch and health, and kind of bringing more familiarity into those activities, right? Because if you don't have a partner and if you're not comfortable hugging your friends, then you don't have that experience, right?
Right. Where do you get your touch if you're not with somebody? And maybe it's been a while since you've had a partner and you're just not sure how to do that. And every body is different. So each time we enter into sort of a new relationship with somebody, that new person really is going to want to receive touch in a different way than the last person. Mm-hmm. So to learn some of how to touch and learn to talk about it and learn to, if somebody wants to stroke your hand and that doesn't feel good for you, you might learn the conversation of, well, that's nice, but I'd really just love it if you rubbed my shoulder or over here instead of there. And a lot of people tolerate, what do I want to say, poor intimacy or something that doesn't really feel good to them because they think that, oh, this person is doing this thing and I'm supposed to just go with it. Where I teach people to have a voice, and we can teach our partners what feels good and where the pleasure is, and what doesn't feel so good and where the pleasure isn't.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Where do I sign up?
All you need is love.com.
Beautiful. So, how can people start expanding their definition of pleasure? I know we touch onto different subjects, but if you could give our listeners just a little tip, a little something that they could practice at home, or maybe a much broader definition of pleasure. So, the ideas start percolating in their minds.
I think the first place to really start is to slow down. We're all so busy in our lives. We're so multitasking. We go to work and we come home and we grocery shop and take care of the kids and the cats and make dinner. And you don't really get to take in all of the senses if you're just moving from one thing to the next to the next. So it's really about slowing down, and even just eating a meal. You sit down to eat a bowl of fresh fruit with strawberries and mango and blueberries, and sit down and savor those flavors. Savor the texture, savor the time that you have to sit down and eat it. Maybe even in silence, without the TV, without something in the background, just to have that that moment to yourself. And things like when you get out of the shower, find a nice lotion that's really yummy, that smells really nice and feels really good on your body and your hands, and take a few minutes to put it on and to touch your body. And we can actually receive pleasure from our own bodies.
Yeah, that what you say, just taking the time to touch your own body that is not in a mechanical way.
Right. Not for a goal. We're not to try to do self-pleasuring to have an orgasm, but to just like, wow, these are my knees and these are my thighs, and ooh, this lotion feels good on them, and then after you put the lotion on, you put on a clothing that feels good, a fabric that feels good on your skin, or something that's loose and flowy. I like things like this. It's a kimono and it's just loose and flowy and it's pretty and colorful, and I feel really sexy walking around in it. I'm home alone, but I feel that brings me pleasure.
Mm-hmm. So, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's all around us if we just slow down and pay a little bit more attention.
Slow down, paying a little bit more attention. And the other thing that I hear you saying is like not being so goal oriented, just kind of like by slowing down, living more within the present moment, and just like savoring every single, detail, because by slowing down, sort of like we amplified our senses, and we can just absorb more information.
Right. We start paying attention, and same for sexuality. There are some people, and it's not a shameful thing, but they are very goal oriented in their sexuality. They want to they want to have their standard sex and their orgasm, and one partner is not happy if the other person. And for me, there's so much pleasure in what a lot of people call foreplay. I just call it all intimacy or sexuality, but in trading massages, or enjoying watching your partner touch their own body. You can play with sensation toys. You can just kiss and make out and eye gaze. And there's so much other pleasure to be had in intimacy than just a penis in a vagina.
Oh, when you say like eye gazing, I went to a tantra festival just like you. It's all of those workshops and festivals are so juicy. And this past weekend, I ended up encountering a friend who participated in the same festival. Mm-hmm. And I remember the eye gazing exercise with him. So when you just said right away, I got like the feeling and the look. And when we saw each other during the weekend, just to say hi randomly, that level of like intimacy that we created during like an hour and a half exercise, right? It's still there, and it's still like so pure, and like it feels safe, even though I know this person every day. Maybe we talk each other 6 months or so, because he travels and I have a life and all that. So those kind of like exercise where you can like slow down and truly make that connection with the other person, or like really with yourself. It just, it doesn't leave your body, kind of like continues the journey with you.
And eye gazing is such a practice of being present with the person that you're with, because you are just focusing on their eyes. It's really edgy and scary for some people. And once they do it, they're just like, wow, you kind of fall in love with every set of eyes that you look into. And having that type of presence, we don't get that out in the world on a daily basis. I just assisted with a men over the weekend, and a lot of these men had never done a workshop. And I was a space holder basically. And we did an exercise where we eye gazed with all 9 of the men who had come for the workshop. And at first they were saying that they were scared and wow, and I didn't know how it's going to be. And then afterwards they just said, oh, wow, like it was so intimate but platonic, right? And so safe. And they felt so held, and they had no idea that they could feel that way in the presence of these people that they didn't know, just from eye gazing.
And one thing that I also got from what you say is that just because these men were being in an intimate, container and eye gazing, and that there was like, yes, a certain level of pleasure because of the expression of what they were feeling, but then this expression of pleasure didn't have to be sexualized.
Right. Right. And some of these men, it was really interesting because they all had different levels of personal work. Some of them had done none. And they were really astounded by how they could be in that space with all these women. And it was all platonic touch. And we did offer and hold them in different ways at different times. And the world that they live in, you don't have any touch with someone of the opposite sex if it's not your partner. And there were no boundaries, there were no agreements if someone was in a relationship that would have been broken by any of the touch that was offered or received. So it was a pretty profound experience for them to be in that.
Yeah. Oh, such a wonderful job that you do. Thank you so much for sharing with us. And just to end the conversation, do you have any books or resources that you would like to share with everyone so they can start, a little bit of their own journey?
I have a list that I provided you that could be put into the video, but one of the books that I really love is The Four Agreements. And that I love that book because it's really about coming into integrity with yourself and how you do that, and authenticity and integrity. So they're kind of foundational books. A couple that are written by the facilitators of the Somatic Institute, Celeste and Danielle.
Make Love Real and
Making Love Real and Coming Together. And then Come As You Are by, oh gosh, the name always escapes me, Nagasaki. Yeah. And I think those are just some books that people can read. They're simple, they're easy reads, and they really explain differences between genders, if that's a thing, you're looking at that, but people too, just humans. We're all different. We all have different experiences. We hear words differently. You can say intimacy to one person and they think that means sex, and you can say intimacy to someone else and they just say, oh, that's eye gazing. So it really talks about the differences and similarities in humans, and I think they're just foundational books.
Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much. I've read the Coming Together, and it had a lot of tips and exercise that you can do with your partner. Right. It tells a little bit of stories of what people have done. And I think that also allows me to create a picture of what can I do?
Right. If you layer that in by working with a somatica coach, then you get to have a little bit of experience, again, with the boundaries of somatica, that you get to have a little bit of experience and be like, oh, wow, yeah, I did just touch this person here the way that I really like to be touched. And that didn't feel good to that person. They like to receive touch a different way. So you need the layers of the reading and the videos and the coaching, and the more you layer it in, the more you get.
Package.
Right.
I read on your website that people book between 5 and 8 sessions, they get also a discount. a percentage?
Yeah, I'm offering a 10% discount for if you book 5 sessions or 9 sessions. I'm happy to offer my regular price is $145 an hour. And so it's 10% off of that.
That's a really good deal. Oh my God, thank you so much, Laura. Is there
Yeah.
anything else that you would like to add or just like tell our listeners?
Yeah, just slow down. Slow down and let her in and pay attention to where you can receive pleasure in your life. It's out there, it's everywhere you look.
So wonderful. Thank you so much. I will follow that advice for sure.
Me too. I have to remember too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you everyone for watching us and listening us. This is Pleasure Talks, and we will see each other next time. Hope you have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.